I went on a completely raw food diet. I started juicing. I juiced a little bit, but now I was really juicing. I knew that the phytonutrients and all of the things in raw food really can stop cancer growth, and very quickly felt amazing. I was like on a high all the time just based on the food that I was eating.
It's Chris, and today I have a new interview for you. Another holistic cancer survivor. It's Heidi Sorensen, and Heidi was diagnosed with breast cancer in 1997. She did no conventional treatment. She pursued the holistic path to healing, and she got well. And I love interviewing long-term survivors, especially people who healed with nutrition and natural non-toxic therapies. Heidi is she's got a brand new book called The Booby Trap: Bust Out of Breast Cancer and Heal Yourself. She previously was a model, actor, a screenwriter in LA. She's been in feature films, television, commercials. She is also a singer and has performed on stages around the world, even The Tonight Show. So she's got a really kind of fun and impressive resume before cancer and alongside her cancer journey. So I'm excited to hear about some of that too. But Heidi, thanks for taking the time to do this. And fun fact, this is our second attempt at this interview. The first attempt, there was a glitch with the recording. So here we are again.
Yeah, this is the sequel, if you will.
The sequel. Right? We're just calling that the dress rehearsal.
Yes, the dress rehearsal. Better.
So it's good to see you and great to meet you in person. And I'm excited to hear your story.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Chris. It's always a pleasure to meet you as well, because I've been following you for so many years. I remember when you just first started, and I've been, receiving your emails for, I don't even know how long, years and years. And so, I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and it's just so valuable. And I relate to so much of your story. My story is not that dissimilar from yours in our approach and how we did things. I was listening to an interview earlier that you did with Chris Carr, and the entire interview, I was going, oh, I did that, or, oh, I relate to that. I mean, it's quite amazing how, when we're looking, especially though that many years ago, when we're looking for alternative ways to heal, 1997, there really wasn't much. There was no other options besides conventional Western medicine. So I really do appreciate everything that you're doing and continue to do.
Thank you. I know our stories do have a lot of similarities, which I love. And folks, I want to encourage you to watch as many survivor interviews as you can. I've done a lot of them. And you will see, after you watch 2 or 3 or 4, you will start to hear the same message, right? You will see these common threads over and over and over among survivor stories, from the food that they ate to their attitude, their mindset, faith, forgiveness. These are major themes, major themes in health and healing. And so I'm excited for you to share the wisdom that you've accrued through your own personal experience and helping others along the way over the last 2 decades or so. So I guess let's go back to the beginning. 26 years ago, what was that going on in your life?
At the time I was still acting a little bit. I was more writing. I was a screenwriter in LA. I was actually writing a script for Catherine Zeta-Jones at the time when I got my diagnosis. I had also just had a baby. I was just a new mother, only a few months. My baby was only a few months old when I was diagnosed. So it was the best year of my life and almost the worst year of my life, just based on the emotional roller coaster that was happening. If you can imagine all the hormones and stuff after you give birth. And then boom, oh, by the way, you have breast cancer. So that was a very challenging year. To say the least. But I had found this little tiny lump before I got pregnant and thought, oh, it's probably nothing, so I'm not going to get it checked out. And then I had my baby, and I felt the lump again after the swelling in my breast went down. And I went to a radiologist, and I got a false negative. He told me that he thought it was probably just a clogged milk duct. and to go home, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. But in my mind, I knew that it probably wasn't. I knew it wasn't because I'd had the lump before I got pregnant. So I went back again a few months later, and it kind of insisted on a biopsy in a way. Like I really had to try to get some answers. And he did the biopsy and it came back as breast cancer. So that was, shocking. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of confusion, all of those typical emotions that happen when you're diagnosed, especially when you're so young. I know you were much younger, but even at 36, it's not really what you're expecting to hear. And I was also really into, healthful living and eating properly. And I was eating, a lot of, raw foods and juicing. I'd been juicing, several years before I got the cancer. But with that said, I radically changed my diet after the diagnosis as well. But I'll get to that.
It's interesting though, because I think your instincts and your intuition, right, had sort of drawn you toward that healthy lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Not knowing what was going on in your body, but your body knew,
Yes. Oh, that's a great point. That's a really great point. Yes. So anyway, so I went on and I got a recommendation for who I was told was the best oncologist in Los Angeles. And I went to her very posh office in Beverly Hills. It was very expensive, which is also a little disarming when you see that, these offices, some of them are so, just beautiful and, views and Beverly Hills. And anyway, I went in there.
Yeah,
and
it's like, wow, maybe you're making too much money off sick people.
Yeah. Well, that's what was going on in my mind. And I was looking at her outfit. It was very expensive and, it just kind of shocking. But anyway, I sat there and she took about 10 seconds to give me, to look at my chart. And she said, okay, so, this breast cancer. So I'm recommending chemotherapy and radiation and tamoxifen. And that was that. And then she just kind of looked at me. And I had done some research before this, quite a bit actually. I was frantic to find some alternative methods besides chemotherapy. And I was reading all the books that I could find. One of the ones that really had a huge impact on me was the Questioning Chemotherapy book, which was quite a big book, that a lot to read, but it had such a huge impact on me. So
that's a book I had. As my mom had that book as well, and
really?
I got it from her, written by Ralph Moss, who I have interviewed. By the way, I'll link to that in the show notes, folks. You've got to watch my interview with Ralph. He's brilliant. He is one of the first, big whistleblowers on the cancer industry and the chemotherapy, especially. But he has another book actually called The Cancer Industry and a book called Cancer Inc. Anyway, but yeah, that's what a great find.
I read that other one too, The Cancer. I read that one as well. And so I was already going in very skeptical after reading those books because it's just brilliant. Anyway, so let
me just say this. Sorry. Ralph did something that at that time no one had done, which is he actually, combed through the medical literature, especially the, cancer related oncology literature. Yeah. Which no one really had access to. It wasn't like today with PubMed and you can just Google and stuff. He was reading through these studies, getting a hold of these journals and digging through and finding the actual studies on different chemotherapy drugs for different types of cancer and the survival rates and and put it out there to show the public that, hey, what your doctor is telling you is not necessarily true. Patients are being misled into believing that treatments work a lot better than they actually do, depending on the stage of cancer and the type of drug and all that. Yes. So that back to your story, which I know what happened already, but please share what happened in that appointment.
Yes. So I was sitting there and I had done all this research and I discovered that the type of breast cancer that I had didn't respond to chemotherapy at all, or very little. And so I asked her, I just flat out asked her, I said, well, I've done some research and I've found out that chemotherapy doesn't work for the type of breast cancer that I have. So, why are you recommending it to me? First I asked her if that was true. And she said, yes. that is true." She actually admitted it. I could tell she was uncomfortable, but she did admit it. And then I said, "Well, then, why are you recommending it to me?" And she said, she took a moment, it was very much like a movie. It was just, I was waiting for the answer. And she said, "Well, I have to, just in case." And I said, "Well, just in case what?" And she said, "Well, just in case it works." And so what I heard in my mind was, what, just in case I sue you, or, just in case what? But she said, just in case it works. And I just thought, how can I, put all of these chemicals and toxic things into my body, and just, not, I just couldn't do it. It just didn't make any sense to me. So what, to do that just in case? Plus tamoxifen puts you into early menopause. And I was only 36 years old. I'd just given birth to my baby. So now I'm still nursing her. So now I'm going to go into early menopause. It was just a mess. And I just felt my body stand up, and I just got up, and she looked surprised. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I just the door, and I just ran out the door, and that was it. I couldn't even be in the room. It was just awful. And so, I appreciated her honesty. That really was good to hear, actually. So then I found another oncologist, and I went to him. I took my husband this time, and I had my baby in my arms, and he was also highly, highly recommended. And I was just hoping that, I could ask, is there anything else? Like, what else do you have for me besides the chemo and the radiation and the tamoxifen? Is there any other treatments or alternative plans that you could, suggest? And he said no. He looked at me like I was an idiot, first of all, and then his demeanor completely changed when I asked him that question. Was very much like, "Why are you asking me that?" And I asked a couple of more questions tentatively, and he just shut me down. And then he said, "Look, if you don't do what I'm recommending, you'll most likely die." I think he might have even said, "You will die." And so once again, I just felt my body just stand up. I had my newborn baby in my arms. My husband was just standing there. He didn't know what was going on, really. And I just walked down the hall, crying. People are looking at me. The receptionist is like, "Oh, trying to stop me. Are you okay?" And then I could hear in the background my husband yelling at him, like, "How dare you talk to my wife that way?" And he must have said something to the effect of, "Look, if we don't have an apology letter to you by tomorrow, we're going to take action against you," or something, because the next day a FedEx truck arrived at our house, and they delivered this letter. And inside the package was a letter from the doctor, from him personally, apologizing to me, saying, "I'm so sorry that I, said what I said. Please accept my apology," and signed with his name. And that was that. And, that was nice and everything, but it didn't really solve my problem. My problem was, what else can I do? Nobody's telling me or giving me any advice about how I can heal myself without these toxic chemicals in my body. And, that's what I really wanted to know. But I realized very quickly that these oncologists weren't going to give me any of that information. Now, you have to remember, this is 1997 in the United States, and there was nothing like that. Now I'm hoping it's different, but, maybe not in some cases, depending on who you go to. But there was just zero information. So I really had nowhere to go, and I really didn't know what to do. I knew what I didn't want to do, but I didn't know what to do. And so I started doing probably what you did at the time, which was, researching, food that I could eat, and, the raw food. So I went on a completely raw food diet. I started juicing. I juiced a little bit, but now I was really juicing. I knew that the phytonutrients and the, all of the things in raw food really can stop cancer growth. I probably knew a little bit about that before, but now I was really, reading up on it, and, trying to, get all of the information I could from the limited amount of books. But there were like you had mentioned, I think before, and I think the hippie books, right? So there was information about that out there. And I just, I just started doing that. I just started, juicing every day, green
Do you
juice.
remember the book, the first books you found about juicing, or
I don't
yeah,
really, there was at that time when was it? Like when I first moved to LA, I was, 19, 20 years old. I was doing that then, and nobody else was doing it. I was just one of those people that
yeah,
I was making my own kombucha, in the 80s.
yeah,
Like I
yeah.
was one of those people. But now I was super, dedicated to it. And
What was the difference? I mean, how serious did you get with raw food and juicing? Did you just 100% all raw? And how many juices
all
did you
raw,
drink per day? And
all raw, all
talk
day.
about that.
Wheatgrass juice in the morning. Um, and a lot of green juices. I did a lot of carrot juice. And then I was, drinking that all day long. And then I was also, just eating raw vegetables. I was eating salads like crazy.
Me too.
Yeah, and I just, like all the things, the cruciferous vegetables, the broccoli, all of that sort of thing, and just eating that. And, I very quickly felt amazing. I was like on a high all the time just based on the food that I was eating. And so a lot of things were going on then. I also had pushback about, the tamoxifen, I was nursing my baby. So then I was told, okay, to have the surgery, you have to stop nursing your baby and you have to do it right now. And then you have to take the tamoxifen. In order to have the surgery, we can't have milk in your, ducts at all. And so I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And they want to give me these drugs to dry up the milk in my breasts. And I was like, whoa, stop. I think it's really important sometimes to just understand that you have the right to say, wait, because there's a push, 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 do it now. You have to do it now, or you're going to die, or blah, 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 blah. It's fear, fear, fear. And I just said, okay, stop everybody. No. And I did more research and I decided that I wouldn't take the drug to dry up my breast. I would do it naturally. So, I don't know if it was the right decision or not, but I nursed my baby on my left breast and I let the right one dry up. Now, there was a little bit of controversy about that because hormones are hormones and they're circulating in your body no matter what. And they didn't like that idea at all. But the choice was mine. And I decided that's what I would do. I didn't want the drugs. I wanted to continue to nurse my baby as much as I could. And so one surgeon said, no, won't operate on you because there's still a little bit of milk in your milk ducts. We can't do it. It's too dangerous. And so I waited a little bit longer. I waited another week and then I found another surgeon and he said, okay, it's pretty much dried up. I think we can do it. I'll do it. And I was like, okay. So we did that, got the lump out. That was it. I continued to, nurse my baby a little bit longer, but then I stopped. I didn't want to take any, chances. And she was already, a year old. So it was like, okay, that's enough. And so my whole experience was very much saying no to everybody, just no, 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 not doing it your way. I'm doing it my way. And I just had this strong conviction that I had to do it a certain way. Don't ask me how. I was very much living outside of my body at that time because I had, friends and I mean, it was just a mess. I had friends and family members saying, do the chemo, do the chemo, do the chemo. And my sister would call me and I would just, no. And I would just hang up on her. Thank you so much, but no, and just hang up. And so, my mom was very supportive. I had my mother, which was amazing. My husband was actually very supportive, which was amazing. But I had a whole circle of friends that wanted to do an intervention with me. And they thought that I was in denial or something and that I was putting my baby at risk. And I was a bad mother, apparently. because I had taken this alternative path and I wasn't doing what everybody else was doing, which was, that path. That's the normal one. That's what you're supposed to do. But I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. And it doesn't work for me. So they were really going to sit me down and like have a talk with me about all of this. And then my husband squashed it. He found out about it. And he's like, you come near her and do this, I will, mess you up or whatever. He
I'm
stopped.
gonna sue you too.
Sue you. I'm going to sue you. Yeah, no, he was really great. He stopped it. I didn't even know it was happening.
That's great.
And, he stopped that whole thing. So yeah.
Well, we had the same, our stories are so similar. It's just funny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had the same pressures. My mom was a big supporter of me at the time, and she had this big library of health and wellness books and holistic books and stuff. But a lot of other folks around me, they didn't understand what I was doing. And they told me, you got to do chemo. You got to do what the doctor says.
Yeah.
And they told me some alternative cancer horror stories to try to scare me, people that they knew who died, who tried alternative, like whatever that means. It could mean anything.
Yes.
And yeah, it's really hard when people around you don't understand. And the thing is, it's like what they really don't understand. There's two things. One is they don't understand the cancer industry. They don't understand the disease. They don't understand the treatments. They just think you need to do it. Right.
Yes.
They're totally ignorant about the risks, the benefits, the likelihood of success. They don't know any of that stuff. They just think you need to do it because that's the thing you're supposed to do. But the other thing they don't understand is they don't understand how hard you are working to save your own life. They don't understand that what you're doing is harder than chemo, right? It's harder than chemo. And probably the most controversial thing I say is chemo is easy. Yeah. And what I mean by that is that it's easy to go sit in a chair and get drugs put in your veins and go home and not change anything about your life. That's easy.
Touche.
Right?
Yes. Touche. And I think another part of that is it's the easy way. And also women, especially women, I find don't, but probably everybody, a lot of people, they don't sit for a moment and go, okay, wait, what do I want to do? Because there's so much pressure, there's so much fear. Like obviously it's really scary. And then you listen to your doctor, they say chemotherapy, radiation, whatever, and you trust blindly. And there's no moment to go, well, but wait a minute, what do I want? There's like such a push to do it now. Otherwise, it's going to be bad for you. And so I think that pressure of, you have to do it now. A lot of women just acquiesce and go, okay, yeah, if that's what you say, doctor, that's what I'll do, instead of going, well, I have a choice in this. This is, something that I can decide as well. It's not just up to you. It's also up to me. It's mostly up to me. It's my body, my life. And so what do I want to do? Do I want to take a moment and just breathe into it and feel what's right for me and use my intuition and maybe, look around and see what else is out there, what other options, because there are many. That's the big problem I see, is that so many people are just so scared. They just do the first thing that they're told instead of actually just really settling in and finding out what else there is that they can do. And unfortunately, oncologists don't tell you anything about nutrition or raw food or anything. In fact, they don't want to hear about it. They don't want you to.
They've never heard about it. They don't want to hear about it. And no. I love what you're saying. I love it because I say the same things. And patients are rushed into treatment out of fear.
Yeah.
Right. They're rushed in out of fear. And I love to use a showbiz expression. I love that you decided to take a beat, right? Yes. You decided to take a beat, to like pump the brakes, to say, hold up, wait a minute. Let me think about this. Let me think about my life and my health and my future. And I need to do some reading and researching. Like, I don't want to be rushed into anything that I don't understand. Like that is, I mean, that, to me, I mean, that's what I'm trying to encourage every patient to do, is to just like, hang on, like you've got a lump. Okay. You're not going to die tomorrow or next week or even next year.
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Most patients, when they're diagnosed, are relatively early and have a lot of time. You got a lot of time. Uh,
Yes.
Sometimes patients are diagnosed when it's life-threatening, and sure, take some immediate action, right? If
Yeah.
you have a life-threatening tumor that's about to close up your windpipe or your colon or whatever. But yeah, if if you just have a lump or a bump somewhere or a lesion somewhere, you
Mhm.
have time.
Yes, you do. I mean, it's such an industry. It's really, I after that happened, I thought, I had the surgery, I had it taken out, and then I was doing all the things with food, and I found an alternative doctor. He was actually, or is, he was an MD at an oncologist at Harvard University Medical Center, Chinese doctor that was trying to implement Chinese medicine into the system, to the program. But they said, no, we don't want to do that. So he quit that job and he started his own practice in Santa Monica. And the same sister that was trying to get me to do the chemo discovered him and sent me information about him. And as soon as I went to see him, I was like, hallelujah. Thank you, God, I found the guy because I had rapport. I trusted him. I knew that the trust and the rapport that I was building with him would help me heal because I had absolute faith that the treatments that he was going to do on me would really work. He's it's a scientist brain, right? So he would tell me exactly what he was doing with the acupuncture, and it was advanced form of acupuncture. So and then people were coming from all over the world to see him in the waiting room. This guy's from Switzerland. Oh, that guy came in from Australia, and they were all getting well. So I
Wow.
was
Well, and
looking,
is he still in practice?
yes, yeah,
What's
he's
his
amazing.
name?
His name is Dr. Don Ha, H-A, in Santa Monica. And I've sent so many people to him.
I'm sorry in advance, Dr. Ha.
I know.
Look out.
He's my
The
hero,
email's about to
honestly.
blow up, I'm sure. And the phone
He's my
too.
hero.
Anyway.
Yeah. He really, and he sings like Neil Diamond. He's a good singer. So he'd make you laugh, right? You'd be in his treatment room and he'd be like singing Neil Diamond songs and, you're going to be fine. No big deal. And so I would
I
leave
love
there
that.
feeling just like, well, okay, this is the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah,
Let's
feeling hopeful, right?
hopeful and optimistic and feeling good and like, okay, I can do this. And so, yeah, so he is just like a shining light for me that really helped me through a lot of the darkness of that time.
Well, and that's so cool. There are so many doctors like him out
Yes.
there, right?
Yeah.
And you only hear about them word of mouth. I
Yeah.
mean,
That's true.
typically they're not advertising, they're not spending a bunch of money, they're not even in the normal network of
Yeah.
doctors, right? They have stepped outside the conventional system, right? These are
Yeah.
doctors who are trained in the conventional system, saw the flaws, right? Saw the gaps, the perils, the pitfalls, right? The ineffectiveness of the toolkit that they were trained in, drugs, surgery, radiation. And, they just realized, well, there's more to health and healing. There's so much more we can do to help patients. And they're operating outside that system. And I love that. I mean, that's so great. That's so great that you found someone like that. I did
Yeah.
too, by the way.
Yeah.
I found a naturopath. Most folks know my story, but anyway, I found a naturopath, and then he referred me to an integrative oncologist who had come out of retirement. He was in his 70s, and he started practicing integrative oncology as opposed to traditional, which he'd done his whole career. And he was doing IV vitamin C and some other non-toxic therapies, and he was studying Chinese medicine in his 70s. Like, he was really trying to learn,
Yes.
how to help people truly heal, not just treat their disease.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't understand that, the fear suppresses your immune system. So like if you stay in that place for too long, it's just going to do, damage to, what's already being done. So you have to find a way to step out of the fear. I mean, it's obvious we all feel that, but there has to be, a way to get out of that so you can help your body heal. And I did a lot of work on that. And that's a lot of the work that I do with women is, helping them get out of that space because, your thoughts go crazy. I remember when I was first diagnosed, I would be like, okay, So my thoughts would say, oh, you're going to die and your husband is going to find someone else. And that woman, that new woman is going to end up raising your baby because now you're dead. And that my baby is not going to like that woman. And it's going to be a miserable life for her. This would all happen in, 10 seconds in my mind. Just boom, 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 I'm dead, blah, 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 all these things. And then I go, whoa, 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 wait a minute. And I would literally, those circles, like no dogs allowed, a circle with a, line.
Yeah.
I would take the thought and I'd put it in there in my mind and cancel it. And I would say, well, okay, I cancel that thought. And then I would replace it with, I'm great. I'm feeling better every day. And my body is perfect and I'm healthy. And I just replace it with all these, positive thoughts about my body and healing. And sometimes in the beginning, I would have to do that, I don't know, 100 times a day because it just takes you over and you just can't help it. And so it's getting the fear in check and using tools to do that, meditation. Dr. Andrew Weil has a great one, the 4-7-8 breathing method that kind of gets you right out of your anxiousness. It really works. I love that one. That was actually based on has ancient roots in pranayama. So, and I've been meditating since I was 19 years old, and I'm a certified instructor in meditation. So I find that really helps, calm the nervous system down a lot. But
it does. And let me just say for folks that don't understand, some people get a little spooked by meditation because they think it's a spiritual practice, and it certainly can be, but it can also just be a physical practice, and it's just breathing, calming yourself down and just breathing. And that's it. Like, you're not worshiping any gods or demons or anything, right? You can literally just, it's a physical practice like running or rock climbing or weightlifting. And this particular physical practice of sitting quietly and controlling your breath, breathing in a deliberate way, calms your nervous system. I mean, it's been proven over and over. There's so many studies on it. It's legit and valid and all that, and very powerful. It's a very powerful way to get yourself out of fight or flight and into a state of calm. And I love your sort of canceling the negative thoughts and the fears, because I totally get it. Like, you can end up on this, it's like the worst case scenario domino effect of thought, right? Because it's like this happens and then that happens and then this, and it's just like one bad thing after another, this domino effect of worst case scenarios, which is, to quote one of my favorite quotes about worry, is that it's a misuse of the imagination.
Oh, so true.
Right? Worry is a misuse of the imagination. But on the flip side, what you did is so great is that you can actually use, if you catch yourself in those moments where you're worrying and misusing your imagination to think of the worst case scenario, you can catch yourself and stop, and then actively imagine how good your life could be, right? Yeah. Like, sit there and think, no, I'm gonna, and just put your imagination to work and think about, well, no, I'm going to get well, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to raise my daughter, and I'm going to put her in ballet, and whatever, right? And you start thinking of making plans for the future that are all positive.
We are in control of our thoughts. Most people don't realize that. We are not victims to them. It's just that we have so many of them that we have to kind of harness it. And I actually started calling it, okay, I'm micromanaging my thoughts, because it really, in those extreme cases, that when you're diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, you can't really control your thoughts very well. So you have to actually, consciously, mindfully go, okay, I'm having this bad thought. You have to stop everything and then replace it. So it becomes a practice. And, it's a really great way to just kind of, okay, that's gone. And then I just see it float away, and then, okay, starting over again. Otherwise, it's a runaway train. It just really gets you. Especially when you're out on a limb and you're doing it your own way, and you don't have a lot of support, and you feel alone anyway in a lot of ways. You might have one or two people supporting you, but if you're doing it, if you're the rebel and you're not following the system, it can feel really scary and lonely because of that. And so not only do you have the fear of, dying or cancer and all those things, but you also feel, sort of alone in your journey to do it your own way. And so a lot of those thoughts come in. Well, what's wrong with me? Why am I the only one doing this? But I had such conviction that I was doing the right thing, that internally I was really happy. Plus, I have a lot of faith in God, and I knew just the feelings that I had were like, they felt right for me. And that was enough. That was enough for me to kind of go on.
I had
So,
those same feelings too. Once I started juicing and eating raw food, I had just a surge of energy, not just physical energy, but like a surge of hope.
yes.
I had just like positive mental and emotional energy from taking control of my life and my health and flooding my body with nutrition and really trusting God. Cause like you are really taking the leap of faith, right? The
Yes.
proverbial leap of faith. You are taking it when you step away from conventional treatment. Everybody thinks you're crazy.
Yeah.
And it's a very lonely place to be. You fortunately had some really great family support, but it's a very lonely place to be in the beginning when you take that leap of faith. And so you really learn to rely on God. Like, okay, like it's just me and you, Jesus.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I can remember thinking that a lot, you know.
And that's okay. Like,
Yeah,
that's all we really have at the end of the day anyway. Even when people love us and we have family and all that, at the end of the day, it's just us and our faith. I mean, it is for me. And so, like, if you have that knowing inside of you that you're doing the right thing and it feels right, this is where I really feel like we need to, especially women have such great intuition. We really need to feel into our intuition. Does this feel right, or does this feel right? And so taking those moments to really kind of check in and see, what feels right for us is just so important.
let me say something else really
Like,
quick about that.
go ahead.
About intuition is like, if something feels wrong and you do it anyway, and you keep doing it and doing it, you sort of dull your intuition. You become numb to it,
Yes,
right?
good
And I think
point.
that's how people get stuck, on the wrong path. In the beginning, they really had that gut check, right? Their instincts, their intuition, the Holy Spirit, whatever, is like saying, this doesn't seem right. I don't know about this.
Yeah,
This may be a bad idea, But if you just kind of press on down that wrong path, yeah, in some ways, I see people kind of go numb and they kind of just kind of go blank. They just end up in a really weird headspace where it's
right.
like, yeah, I don't know. It's almost like they become a little robotic. Have you
Right.
seen that?
Yes, I have. And I think that's like, it's the norm in a lot of ways, because you feel like you have no choice. And so whenever, nobody wants to do chemo, nobody wants to do that. It's not like, oh yay, chemo. It's
Right.
okay, I have to do chemo and I have no choice. And
Yeah.
so whenever you feel like you're giving up your power, of course you're going to numb out,
Yeah.
and you know whether that there's other ways to do it or not. I think our natural state is to be vital and healthy, and to do things that give us that vitality and health, not to go against it.
The farther you go down the wrong path, I think the stronger your cognitive dissonance gets, and it becomes harder and harder to consider the possibility that you made the wrong decision.
Yes.
Right. Or that you're continuing to make the wrong, right? It becomes more and more difficult to entertain that notion. And so you sort
Yes.
of put up walls, and you become very closed off to even the suggestion. And this is that I see constantly is cancer patients they just lash out. If there's ever a suggestion that like, oh, maybe, you could do it differently, or maybe you could take a holistic path, or
Yes.
there's this just welled up like anger and
Yes.
fury, and they lash out at people that are just trying to, be helpful. That's why I don't spend any time in conventional cancer forums, because there's a lot of really upset and angry people with this, like, again, cognitive dissonance. But there is sort of the hopeful part of that is that for some of them, there is a sort of, there's a straw that breaks the camel's back
Yes.
moment that can happen in their belief system, where after so many treatments or so many failed promises from the doctor, they finally wake up and go, wait a second, like
Yes.
this isn't working. Right.
Yeah.
And their faith in the industry and their doctors is shattered. And
Yeah.
then they kind of break out of that, spell, for lack
Yes.
of a better word. And then it's like, okay, wait a second. I got to relearn everything. We got to reevaluate the situation.
Yes.
You know, what can I do to help myself?
It's so true. It really is true. And it's such an industry that you get kind of, it's almost like a cult in a way. You get pulled into and
It
your
is
way of
cultish.
thinking. It is, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, even like I don't use the word survivor, and I know that's controversial to some people. People are like, what?
I
Why?
get it.
I don't like it because a couple of different reasons. It all started, I went on this walk. I was living in California, and there was a Cindy Crawford walk for the cure. And I used to see her around, and I thought, oh, this is cool. I'll do it. That would be a good thing to do. I just newly, had cancer and just over it and had the surgery, and okay, I'll do this. And so I went on this walk. I went to the place of the walk, which was in Malibu. And when I got there, there was two check-in places. One said survivor, and they give you a survivor sign for your shirt, and the other one said guest. And I got there and I was like, okay, well, I'm not a guest, but I don't feel like a survivor, but I guess I'm supposed to be a survivor. So I'll check in with the survivor thing, right? So I put the thing on and I'm walking, and I'm still fairly young and I'm looking pretty good, but I've got the survivor thing on. And I just noticed that I felt uncomfortable right away. And I was labeling myself like, okay, now suddenly this is my story. This is who I am. This is defining me. Like, I'm survivor. And it just felt odd. And then I noticed people, staring at me like, oh, I could just see their thought bubble. What happened to her? Like, she's so young, and, what's going on with her? And, oh, she's a survivor. I even saw Cindy Crawford looking at me like that. And so I just felt uncomfortable with it. And it didn't feel right to me. The entire walk, I was uncomfortable. And so I got home and I looked at my husband and I said, what do you think about this? Like, what's your feeling on this? And he looked up at me. He was doing something. He looked up at me and he goes, why are you wearing that? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. And I just pulled it off and I threw it down. And from that moment, I just knew that that's not how I wanted to identify myself. I didn't, and I know that is, a little bit different than the norm. And I know some people really love that title, and they do different things. Like they do the rowing team, the breast cancer pink ribbon thing and all that stuff. And I don't want to be part of something that is first of all, a business, because the pink ribbon to me is just, it's on everything. It's like, you buy something for food, and it's on this and it's on that, and it's
On
just
Diet Cokes.
money, 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 money. And so, no, I will not give to the pink ribbon campaign. I will not do that. I'm not a survivor. And part of that, I feel like, is because I didn't do the chemotherapy. I don't feel like maybe I've earned it, or maybe
Yeah, I get it. You didn't survive the brutal treatments, right?
so I don't feel like I've earned it in a way. And I also don't like to identify myself in kind of like a word that has a victim kind of feeling about it. Even though survivor feels like a strong word, it kind of infers that we had a huge struggle. We almost didn't make it, but in the last second we made it and we survived it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, that may be true, for a lot of people, but I don't want to identify myself that way. I don't want that to be my story. So when I had my surgery, I had the lump taken out. I was like, okay, I'm done. I don't have cancer anymore. It's gone. I don't use the word survivor. I don't use the word remission. I don't believe in that. Remission is also another word that it's lurking down there somewhere and it could come back one day. No, it's gone. And I think if we really believe that it's gone and we just stick with that, it might be naive, but like, I really believe that the words that you use and how you define yourself are very important, because words have a frequency. Your thoughts have a frequency that you can measure. Your words have a frequency. And if you go about talking about your disease all day, oh, cancer, 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 and you're ruminating on it, and you're talking to your friends, and you're just in dialogue around it, and you're thinking about it, you're just bringing more of that to you. And so for me, I understood the law of the subconscious, the subconscious mind, and the power of attraction and all of that. And so I just didn't do any of that. I didn't talk about it. To this day, people don't even know that I had breast cancer, really, unless I'm doing something like this, because it's not part of my story. And I just think it's super important that we don't kind of, identify too much with that, get on with our lives, right? Like just,
I love that sentiment. I really do. I mean, obviously, I use the word survivor just so people know what I'm talking about. Right. But I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Like in terms of identifying with that, and the sort of absurdity of the way the cancer industry has exploited survivors is the American Cancer Society defines a survivor as anyone who has been diagnosed with cancer.
Oh,
yeah. So literally the day you're diagnosed, you are now a survivor. Congratulations. And they use these inflated statistics. They do this every year when they come out with their annual report, and they say, something like, there are now 1.5 million cancer survivors in the US. And this literally includes all the sick people that were just diagnosed and everything. So you think, oh, cancer survivors, oh, they've had cancer and they're over it and they've gotten well and they're living their lives. Nope. These are people with cancer. Of course, it includes some that have survived, like literally. And it's such a scam. It's a massive scam.
I mean, if you're labeled a survivor the moment that you're diagnosed, you haven't even done anything yet. You haven't even,
Yeah, you're just a sick person. And the way I look at cancer is probably the same way as you. It's like, I was sick with cancer and I got well.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? That's what happened. That's my story. If I say I'm a cancer survivor, then people get it like, oh, he had cancer at some point in his life and now he's alive and well. That's sort of the general public's understanding of the definition of that word, which I'm okay with, but
right.
I'm with you. Like it's definitely an industry word. Like the industry coined, it's the war on cancer. You're a survivor. You're a warrior, right? All these militaristic terms.
Right.
And the reason they did that, it was not by accident. If you convince a person that it's a battle, it's a war, and they're a fighter, then you can also convince them they have to suffer.
Right.
Because it's a battle. That means there's suffering, and these treatments, you're going to suffer. Right. So in order for you to fight cancer and defeat it and be a warrior, then you're going to have to suffer along the way. So, my opinion, and I talk about this in my book, is like, I don't think you need to fight cancer. These are your cells. It's your body. Like, you don't want to fight yourself. It doesn't make sense. Like, you're sick and you need to heal.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you need. You just need healing. You need to fight yourself. You need to heal yourself.
Yes. Well, in the 1950s, there was a whole campaign to put fear into the American public. And it was based on, we think we'll get more people to come in and get checked if we create this fear around it. And so it was a very deliberate campaign that made everybody really afraid. And so ever since then, like before that, if you didn't hear about all of this before the 1950s, people would get cancer. Sometimes it would go away. Like I've heard something like 1/4 of all cancers go away on their own. So, but our bodies kind of just naturally take care of it. People weren't dying the same way before this huge fear campaign happened in the 1950s. It's been written, you can Google it, it's been documented. So
there's a study to that effect on breast cancer, and I'll link to it in the show notes. And just a brief summary is that they followed breast cancer patients, and some of them had annual mammograms, and then some had mammograms that were spaced out, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years. I'm a little rusty on the details of the study, but what they found is that the women who had annual mammograms or mammograms on whatever this schedule was, were diagnosed with cancer much more often than the women that didn't have the
Yeah.
routine mammograms. And they realized uh, that these women, it's not like they had less cancer. They had cancers that would regress, spontaneously regress,
Yes.
heal on
Yes.
their own.
Yes. I've read that. I, in fact, recently just read that.
Yeah, the
And
study was by Zoll, was the principal investigator. But anyway, I'll link to it.
yeah, it's shocking, really. It's absolutely shocking how anyway, it's it's so much of it has to do with our mindset and what we want for our lives. And we have to understand that our words do have power. Our minds are listening. Like whenever you say something, your mind is listening and it's giving information and directions and instructions to our body. So yeah, that's why I'm very careful with the words that I use and the thoughts that I think. And I make it a choice, or every day it's a choice, right? We wake up and we have the ability to be grateful for our lives and think about all the things that we're blessed with, or we can go into the fear and the what ifs. And I think it's super important to kind of, if you do go over, because we all do, to the fear, to just bring it back. And then just okay, well, I have one of the things we say in our family is, well, we have legs. So, it's kind of a joke, like, but we have legs, so we can walk, right? And some people can't walk. Some people, can't do a lot of things. So, it's putting it into perspective and not ruminating on, what's going on with us or our disease or whatever.
Yeah, it's practicing gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Comparing yourself to those who are less fortunate
Yes.
is one of the best ways you can practice gratitude. When you compare yourself to people that you perceive are more fortunate, then that just fosters resentment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And unhappiness and jealousy and envy and all these negative emotions. But when you compare yourself to people less fortunate, you are filled with thankfulness and gratitude of how good your life is. You have legs.
Yeah. Yeah. We have legs. So it's kind of like this thing that's been passed down through the generations. Now my little, my daughter says it. She'll be having a bad day. She go, oh, but I've got legs, Mom. And go, yeah, that's great,
Yeah.
because it's just kind of a silly thing, but it just flips it over really
That's
quick.
such a great little gratitude hack.
Yeah. I
It's
know.
great. I love it.
Or one of my other ones is, well, we're not in Syria or somewhere where, we're not being bombed. That instantly takes you out of your little world and go, oh yeah, okay, I'm not doing that. So
I'm going to use that. I love it.
yeah,
I'm going to use it on my kids. Maybe it'll stick in their heads too, and they can put it to practice. So
yeah,
I'd love to ask you about forgiveness. Was that a part of your
yeah.
healing journey?
It was. So, like I said, I had mentioned, I'd already had a pretty good diet. And I just refined it and like made it even more intense, more just 100% raw and all the things. But I realized, I was also going through a very difficult time in my life right before I was diagnosed. So, it's some marriage problems and some other things going on, and I needed to address. But more than that, I had unforgiveness around my father. So I had some therapy about that. And I realized I'd never really forgiven my father. My father kind of left when I was young, maybe 11 or 12. And I don't really remember crying or being sad about it. I just remember not really feeling much of anything. And so when I talk about my dad in my adult life, I'd be like, oh, yeah, well, my dad, it wasn't like, oh, my dad. It was just my dad. I wasn't really close to him. He left when I was young. That was the story. But as soon as I got into it and I worked with a therapist about it, I realized I had anger and I had unforgiveness and I had, probably abandonment issues or who knows what. And so what I did, she instructed me to write a letter, write the letter to my dad and then burn it afterwards. And I thought that was really dumb. I thought, I got to go write a letter to my dad. But I did. I went home and I sat down and I thought, okay, how do I start? Okay, dear dad. And then I just started writing. And at first it was like, okay, well, this wasn't very good that you did this or blah, 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 blah. And then towards like the middle, I started getting angry. I could feel the anger coming out. And I was like, okay, well, why did you do this? And blah, 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 blah. And then towards the end, I was full on like writing this letter, scratching the paper. I was ripping the paper with my pen because I was so mad. I was just writing like, and I was crying, and I was just so upset and angry, and all of this emotion was coming out that I had no idea I even had about my father, like zero clue. I think I was just in kind of, you know, the mode of, yeah, it's fine. So that was really interesting for me because I didn't realize that, our bodies store the emotions. And Dr. Bradley Nelson does some really great work with, stuck emotions. And that's another story, but he's really great. So our bodies, they store all of these emotions and they get stuck in there. And unless you get them out, you will have things, cancers or, arthritis or whatever dis-ease is manifesting because of these stuck emotions. So once I did that, I burned the letter and I went back to my therapist and said, okay, that worked. What else do I need to do? And I realized that unforgiveness was huge in my life and I needed to forgive him. And once I did, it was easy. It was like, okay, that was great. I felt fine about it. I felt love for him and compassion. And I realized he's just another human being with faults and issues and, probably had a bad childhood. And I could look at him as just another human being, another soul. And, I just released it. And I really believe that so many of us, whether we know it or not, are carrying around these burdens of unforgiveness, and especially women with breast cancer. Now, I've heard in Chinese medicine, the right breast, which is where I had breast cancer, is, it's attached to the liver and anger. And a lot of the anger comes from not forgiving. So a lot of women, especially if they're, right breast cancer, need to work on forgiveness and letting go. And so that's another thing you can Google, Chinese medicine, very, very powerful. And, once we can do that, we can start the healing process on a very, deep level, the real healing, right?
That's beautiful. I think every cancer patient needs to forgive, not just the right breast cancer patients. That's my opinion. All of them. I mean, because yeah, you're right. I mean, it's easy to lock away those emotions and never acknowledge them. And I don't know, something really miraculous happens just by acknowledging your feelings, like writing them down on paper. There's a book about this called Expressive Writing, and it's about this practice of like when you just take a few minutes to write down your anger, your frustrations, like whatever, and put it on paper and then destroy it. It frees you. It's not trapped like in your body anymore. You've let it out, you've acknowledged it. And there's some deep psychology, and behind this that I can't articulate, but I can tell you it works. It's really helpful. And really. It's so cool that you did that. That's great. I think that a lot of people are, after hearing you, hopefully will be inspired to do that themselves.
I think, even if you don't have cancer, I think that it's cathartic. It's a way of just, getting past. And we don't want to, get to the end of our lives and think, well, okay, what else could I have done to be a better person? Forgiveness is huge. Like when you see older people that, carry grudges, you think, come on, you're 75, 80 years old, get over it. Let's evolve a little bit. And so like, just for anybody, I think it's a great practice, but especially if we have any kind of disease or, cancer or anything like that, it's a very valuable practice. And you're right, just witnessing the pain, like as Eckhart Tolle says, you step outside of yourself when you witness the pain body. I love his description of the pain body because he makes it sound like it's an entity of its own. He describes it as an entity of its own. And, the emotions come out, the pain comes out. And his way of saying it is you observe it. You observe the pain body, go, oh, okay, that's anger. And then once you observe it, you're separate from it. You're no longer the emotion. So You're feeling the anger, you're almost like a part of the anger, but once you observe it, it's separate from you and it instantly releases you from it. So just the observation of the emotion frees you from it. It's a brilliant practice. It's in The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle,
Mm-hmm.
chapter 5, I think. I don't know. I've listened to
Yeah.
it times on audio.
Well, and also it's a form of denial, right?
Yeah.
When you don't acknowledge your pain and you say, I'm fine, everything's fine, right? You're in denial, and that your
Yes.
spirit and your soul and your mind and your body like does not like to be in denial, right? It's not a state of peace and harmony when you're essentially lying to yourself and to others. And
Well, this is
so,
a really important point that you bring up, and sorry to interrupt, but my family were Danish, and we, first generation, and our whole motto is everything's okay. Everything's fine. You can do it. Keep going, chin up, everything's fine. Like there's no problems. If there's a problem, think positive, and so that's great, except for when you're squashing down your feelings, right?
yeah,
So I think that's what I did around my dad was just, I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's okay. And until I actually, did a little inner child work and went, okay, maybe it's not okay, that your dad left and you have all of these feelings, and it's okay to look at the emotions. It's okay to observe them and go, you know what, that really hurt me. And that was something, that wasn't okay because I was only 11 years old. And then just being kind to yourself and giving yourself, compassion and love, and taking a moment, taking a beat, and really, internalizing those feelings and then looking at them. And once you look at them, you can let it go. The writing down process, or just observing your thoughts and your feelings is super powerful when it comes to healing.
I've done it. I agree.
I
It's
know you
so
have.
important, folks. Like you can do you can do everything right with the diet and the treatments and the therapies and all kinds of stuff that are, helpful, beneficial things. But if you don't address the stress in your life, if you don't address your pain, the resentment, the bitterness, the anger that you're carrying toward people in your past who've hurt you, it can be the one barrier to healing. It
Yes.
can be the single barrier that prevents you from getting well. And so you got to do that internal work. Um, and you can't do all that work in one sitting. You have to be persistent,
Yeah.
right? You have to persist in digging through your past and forgiving the people who've hurt you and acknowledging that, the pain they've caused you. And, and it just takes time. The cool thing is, you can change your diet today. You can start exercising today. Like that gets the momentum
Yeah.
going, right? You get that healing momentum by changing how you take care of your physical body. And
Yeah.
then along that journey, during that process, then you work out your mental,
Yeah.
spiritual, and emotional junk, right?
Yeah, that's what I did was, for the forgiveness part, there was other people I needed to forgive. And so along the way, and so I would go for walks, long walks in the woods, and I would say, sometimes out loud, I forgive you, so and so. And I would just keep saying it.
Right.
In the first, I was like, I don't forgive them. Like, this is nonsense. How could I forgive them? But I would just keep saying it until it actually felt real, until I wouldn't stop saying it in my mind or even out loud until it felt real to me, until I believed myself. Because I think, to tell someone to forgive, like, some horrible things happen to people. There's abuse and there's, all kinds of horrible things that happen to people.
Yeah.
And just to say, oh, you know what, forgive that person. It's like, are you kidding me? But like you said, it's a process. And so you have to get into a place where you actually believe it. And so sometimes repetition and walking in nature is a great way to do it. Just keep walking and then saying it to yourself. I forgive you, so and so. I forgive you, so and so. There doesn't need to be reasons why. You just keep saying it. And then eventually it'll start to crack a little bit, and you'll feel that forgiveness. And then the more you do it, the more you feel it, until it just breaks open and you just feel that incredible feeling of forgiveness, which is an amazing feeling. It's an incredible cathartic moment when you realize you've truly forgiven someone for what they've done. And, I think that's, I don't know, it's just super important.
Yeah, you've released yourself from the prison of pain,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
right. And I like to call it exercising your forgiveness muscle, which means you have to do it. You just have to keep doing it. You have to keep
Yeah.
forgiving. And the more you forgive, the better you get at it and the easier it becomes. And then you become quick to forgive. And so when new people hurt you, you just quickly realize, oh, hey, that hurts. That stung. That was inconsiderate. That was rude. Right. But I forgive them. You know what? I'm not gonna stew on it. I'm not gonna hold a grudge. I'm not gonna let it, attach to me. I'm just
Yeah.
going to forgive him. God bless him. I forgive him. I don't know what's going on in this person's life, why they're treating me this way, but you know what, God, you can deal with them. And I'm not going to hold on to resentment or bitterness about it.
That's exactly what I do, because at the end of the day, I have a saying, well, we're all God's children. Why are we judging others? Why everybody's got a story, everybody's got something. Okay, that's okay. It's a choice of just letting things we're not perfect. We get pissed off, whatever. But, ultimately it's better to just kind of let it roll off your back and not take it in, because when we have those feelings, it's hurting us. So forgiveness
Yeah.
is about that other person, it's about us. So it's a very selfish act, actually, to forgive. It's not about that person that did the wrong thing. When you forgive someone, you're actually benefiting yourself. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that expression, the best revenge is living well.
Yeah.
So the twist on that, to me, it's like the best revenge is forgiveness,
Yeah.
right? Is living free of pain,
Yeah.
right? To living in joy and peace and harmony, and
Yeah.
not being affected by that person who hurt you anymore. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that the best? And so, uh,
Mhm.
anyway, I just have enjoyed this conversation so much. I
Me
love your
too.
story. You're such a wonderful, remarkable person. I'm so glad you have a book out, and let's make sure people know where to find it. The book is called The Booby Trap:
Yeah.
Bust Out of Breast Cancer and Heal Yourself. And
Yes.
where can people find the book?
I'm just now launching it, but it's on Amazon.
And how can people connect with you online?
I have so um holisticbreastexpert.com, and there you can find all the information about me and contact information, programs and whatnot. So yeah, so that's the best place.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah,
Heidi, thank you so much. This has been really fun.
it's been a lot.
Uh, Guys, gals, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Please share this video with people you care about, people who have breast cancer. Any woman with breasts would benefit from knowing that breast cancer does not have to be a death sentence, that people have healed and survived. What a wonderful, encouraging, hopeful story, and help us reach more people with this message of hope that cancer can be healed. Thanks for
Yeah.
watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one.